Welcome. My name is Robert Morrow with Transco. Today, I would like to talk about a free program called ShopStream Connect from Snap-on. Although it's been out for 20 plus years at least that I've been using it and getting better every day, and completely free, it is still not all that well known by many in the industry. But what the program does is it allows you to take a recording, a log with your scanner during the road test. They call it a movie in Snap-on term. So you take this movie and then you can upload it to your computer, view it, looking at the value of each frame corresponding one pit versus the other. It makes it very powerful. I'll demonstrate that in a minute. Another big advantage of the program is that it allows you to share the recording, the movie, with anybody via email or just posting it on forums like the Brotherhood or TransLogic on Facebook, TRNW, what have you. You can send it to anybody you ask for help, whether it's a friend, a tech support specialist, like when you're calling Transgo, ATR, ATSG, any of those places. It is basically just like taking the person you're asking for help with and bring them along on the road test with you. Now, this is starting to sound like a commercial for Snap-on. Just to be clear, there's only two programs that I know that are available out there that allow you to take movies and share them with anybody else for free, whether they have the same scanner or not. There's Snap-on and there's HP Tuners. Now, HP Tuners is much more powerful, but the learning curve is very steep. Maybe at one point in time, I'll make a video on those one too. Not sure. But for now, we're going to talk about Snap-on. There's other great scanner out there that have movie recording and log. Well, I believe most of them have movie recording or log recording capability where you can review the data and graph it. Unfortunately, in order to do that, you either have to review it on the scan tool itself or use a program that connects to your scan tool. You can't just share it with anybody out there, which this is the big advantage of the Snap-on scanner on that level. Now, I'm going to post in the comments below. There's going to be links for the user manual for your scanner, links where to download this ShopStream program. I'm also going to include the two movies that I'm going to use today to demonstrate how to go about reviewing the movie and how powerful it is. We're going to be talking about a 6L80 problem today. My plan is to have this video up permanently here so that go look at it and familiarize yourself with the procedure on how to install the program, use it, etc. So without further ado, let's jump in. It's what I call movie time. To start with, if you don't have it, all you have to do is you go online and you type ShopStream Connect download, and then you'll find a link. Brings you to this program, and you click on this link right here, which will download the exe file, and then you can automatically, you double click it and you install the program. A little word of caution, if you're going to use this, it is best to install the program first before connecting your scanner to the computer. Otherwise, sometimes it install the wrong drivers and then it's hard to make it work right. There's also a link right here to the ShopStream Connect user manual. So if you need to read the user manual, there it is. You can download it in PDF. Talking about user manual, another thing that many people don't seem to know about Snap-on, for some reason they don't advertise it much, is that they have all their user manual online. So you go Snap-on, user manuals, make a search, and there you go to this page, and here you have it. Every one of their scanner, there is the one for the ShopStream Connect here. They've got all the scanners, like I have the Modus Edge, for example. You also sometimes use the Verus Pro or the Zeus. But, if you're not too familiar with how to take movie, which is what I'm going to talk about in a second, then you just download the manual and you flip to it or anything else. Once you click on there, it just simply brings you to a page like this with the, it's a 222-page user manual, and you've got everything you need there to inform you. Let me just give you a couple of quick examples here. Let me bring this. Okay, I'm gonna go to this page. Okay, this is a bit of a modern one. Let me just go here. Okay, this is your typical scanner screen. You've used it. You can put the display here and graphs, PIDs like this, 4-graph, 2-graph. You can do all kinds of things. If you're not too familiar with this, the little check mark right here, if you click on there, it allows you to select or deselect PIDs. That way, if you want to take a recording or if you want to look at data with much better definition, you just remove the PIDs you don't need, and now you've got a much better resolution. They can only handle so much data at a time. So the more data, the more PIDs you select, the more space there is, if you want, between each data point that it records, or view, display on your screen. So that's something to play with. Of course, we've got the graph, not graph. You can lock some PIDs so that you can arrange them the way you want. Now, what I want to talk about is this bar right here. This bar is a buffer bar that they call. Now, you can see it. It's, I don't know, 3/4 or 2/3 full right there. It says it's 1364 to 2000 right there. That's your buffer. Now, let me just give you a couple of examples of the different ways it shows. This is not a very good image because it's an old user manual, but this is for like a Solus Pro back in the days. The bar used to be blue right here. You can see it's starting to fill there, and it's filling all the way to the right. This is more like Modus Ultra, Solus Ultra Edge, and things like that. This one is, I believe, Verus Pro. Now they've moved it here. It's a little more fancy. See, it's got a fast forward, back, and review right there. It looks a little different. And finally, on the Zeus, it's completely different. This is the PIDs, and then here at the bottom is your buffer bar. You can see it there. It has 1069 right now, of about 2000 frame. Now let's talk about this buffer bar a little bit and explain what it is. Whenever you're using your scanner and you're viewing data and this bar is moving along, filling up from the left to right, it is recording. There is no need to arm the scanner like back in the old days with the brick. This scanner, all the Snap-on scanners that exist nowadays, they all record all the time. All you have to do when you want to save what it's been recording is to hit the floppy disk icon right here. Maybe nowadays it's a little hard to know what a floppy disk is. It's a thing of the past, but this is the save button. There's different example. Now they put the little save next to it, but they all work pretty much the same. Now, the way it works is that when you start, you put your scanner, you turn it on, you look at the data, this thing starts to record. The frames are not related to time. They are like blocks of data that it records. So it will fill out the buffer much faster or much slower, depending on how much data you're recording or viewing, if you want, because it's always recording. So watch this bar as it goes. And once it gets to the end, like this is probably a Solus Ultra, it has only 2000 frame. Once it gets to the end there, it will start overwriting the earlier data in there. It keeps only a maximum of 2000 frame. Now, this could be a minute, could be 10 minutes, could be 15 minutes even. It depends on what you're scanning. If you're scanning like a Chrysler old style that records really, really slow, only data points here and there, you can put a lot of data in 2000 frame. Now, on the next level up, like Solus Ultra, Edge, Modus, and stuff like that, you'll have 4000 frame. And then when you go all out with those super expensive late scanners like the Zeus, sky's the limit, I believe. You can record for as long as you want, hours, and as long as the hard drive in the machine can hold it. So the important thing is, you're driving, you don't have to do anything, you don't even have to look at the scanner. You feel the problem, you then hit the save button, pull over, and it saves everything that's in that buffer. If the part you want to save happened 10 minutes ago, it might not be in there. So you got to make sure that the buffer bar is not full or if it's full that you're going to miss some of the earliest data. Another thing that is good to do when you're going to save data like that is to put yourself some markers. I prefer using the brake pedal switch. You can use whatever you want, but sometimes it's hard to remember after you've driven it for a while. Was it making a 2-3 shift where I felt the clunk there or the little flare or what have you? So I like to tap the brake pedal a couple of times, usually 3 times, tap, 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 just to put some sort of marker on the movie to know, okay, just before there was 3 brake switch event, I felt the problem. One word of caution, if you're going to do that, don't tap the brake pedal too fast. Many times, depending on the data rate of the scanner, you won't see 3 taps. So you got to tap it a little bit slow. Okay, so now you've saved your data. It's in the scanner. You don't even have to do this yourself. You can send your service writer, you can send the customer if you trust them with your expensive scanner. All they have to do is drive it. When they feel the problem, they click save. The data that happened in the past is all saved. It doesn't save anything after you hit the save button. It saves only the past data. Now you can review it on the scanner. However, it's a little clunky and not all that powerful. But if you download that program, the ShopStream Connect program, now you're in business. And let me show you what I mean. So this is the program. Once you open it, it will look like this. It creates a ShopStream folder on your hard drive, and it puts a movie. Now this one, I just put 3 movies in there for this example today, but usually there'll be many, and you can create folders, sort them, label them. You can do whatever you want. It's just like anything else on your hard drive. Now, when you connect your scanner, if you have something that doesn't have internet connection, like the older scanner like mine, like the Modus or Edge or anything like that, not with the Zeus and the Verus Pro that have the whole browser in there, you can, on those older ones, you can connect to your PC or laptop, the one that you have this program connected, with a USB cable. It's fairly easy. At the beginning of the menu in your scanner, there's going to be, I believe it's called Tools or something, and then you click Connect to PC. You connect the wire. Automatically, when you plug into your computer, this program will open by itself. If you've installed it, it will automatically open. And then here, you see I've got C, D, E, F, all my drives there. There's going to be an extra drive at the end that's going to be your scanner, and it's going to be exactly like any other drive on your computer where you can drag and drop. You can open the files, look them up, bring them over. I like to bring them over to the computer and disconnect the scanner. That way I can manipulate them, and if I lose them, damage them, what have you, they're still on the scanner. Now there's another way to do it, which sometimes is easier, and on the later one, it's much easier. On the later one, you can open your email program like Gmail or Yahoo Mail or what have you that you're using and email yourself the movies. It's a little tricky to do. I find it much easier to just use a thumb drive. Most of the scanners nowadays have a USB-A port where you can just plug in a thumb drive. You drag the files from your scanner into the thumb drive, and you bring them to your computer. Whatever worked for you, you have to bring those movies, those recordings to the computer. Older ones are going to be SCM files. The latest one, they're going to be PID files. Doesn't really matter. It's just different name, but you need this program to open them. Otherwise, you won't know what they are. Okay, moving on. Let's start with the way it's going to look. Now, the movies are labeled in a strange way at first. The name is going to be something like this. Like this is an example. I think that was taken in 2014 or something like that. I just brought it in with the name to show you. But the names are quite abstract. They usually have the date and the time that they were taken in it. But it's not all that helpful if you're going to save them. I save everything, so I've got hundreds and hundreds of movies. It's always good for reference for later, good and bad movie. So what you want to do there is you right click and you go edit and you rename it. So in this case, this is some sort of Allison, I believe. So I'll be saying 1, 2, shift error, whatever. I don't remember what that was. It's just an example. But you name it what it is. The other thing that's really neat is this pane here. Most scanner will pull the VIN number from the vehicle. It's going to be in there. It's really nice to be able to refer to know what the vehicle is. If it's not there, you can just type it in. You can put here whatever you want. Hello, Transgo. How are you doing? You can type just anything. The diagnostic, what you found, what it was doing, where in the movie there's a problem. When you click somewhere else, it's going to ask you if you want to save, and then you save it. In my case, I'm not going to save it because I don't want to put things like that in my file name. Okay, so this was just our example there of what you can do, but it's very handy. You can put all kinds of notes. Sometimes I have a lot of notes there, things that the customer have told me. I'm trying to help a guy, so I put all the notes of what they told me in there so I can remember. So the case study that we want to look at today to illustrate how powerful ShopStream Connect is, as well as talk about a problem that is somewhat common on that can be tricky to diagnose on the XL80, XL90, is a 2015 Chevy Express van 4.8. And the technician had contacted me saying that the vehicle slipped in second gear. Not all the time, but most of the time, especially when hot, and it breaks loose on the 1-2 shift. And it came in for that problem. Didn't find anything in the unit. All the clutch looked good. No friction burnt, nothing. Rebuilt. Had put our kit in it. Drove it, same thing again, of course. Then they replaced the valve body, same problem. Replaced the Tecum, same problem. That was a used Tecum. Put a Tecum OE. You guessed it, same problem. So when he gave me all this information, well, first thing first, send me a movie. Let me look at the data. That is probably the number one or number two reason to have ShopStream Connect is that you can share the recording with anybody you want. The program is completely free. You don't have to own a scanner to use it. So anytime you need help from a friend, a coworker, guy from another shop, a technical support specialist like a Transgo or ATRA or ATSG, it doesn't matter. You can email this movie to a buddy at another shop, another technician that you know, share it online on one of the forum. Well, it's almost like taking the other person that you're asking for advice or you want to bounce the problem against. It's as if you were taking them on a road test with you, because they'll be able to see exactly the same thing as you, review it the same thing you would. So this is extremely powerful. Now, a word of caution about this: once you have ShopStream Connect installed, if you right-click on the movie, there's a little function here that says email the file. That's tricky. It does not work unless you have an email client installed on your computer. What that means is you got to have Outlook or a program like that. Otherwise, if you use webmail like most people, Gmail, that doesn't work. So if you click on that button, it won't work for you. It's no big deal. All you have to do is to go in the folder on your drive and just attach the file like you would any other attachment, a picture, whenever you open your email program, your Gmail, Yahoo, AOL, even if you're still using that, and you find the file on the computer in the ShopStream folder and you email it or share it online in any of those groups like the Brotherhood, Translogic, or whatever you, TRNW, you get the idea. This guy didn't know how to do this, so I had to walk him through, explain to him how to do it. Sends me the movie. The first one was this one here, first to fifth gear. So let's open this. Now, I'm going to go over this in great detail. There's a lot of little tricks. I've been using ShopStream for over 20 years. I love the program. They've made it much, much better over the years. It's not perfect, but it has a lot of good stuff. So I knew a lot of tricks that many people don't know. I'll go over all of them before analyzing the problem. A couple of things. First of all, this pane here on the left can be moved. So I always reduce it so I can see so I can see the graph. You can, of course, now you can't read everything, so you can move it back. You can also remove it completely from there. You can either have just a graph. You can even have just the PIDs, no graph if you wanted that, but that's something you do. So we can go one graph at a time, two graph, four graphs, six graph all on top like this, six graph in two columns, and of course 16 graph, which is the maximum. Now those two buttons here, scale is the scale right here on the left, so that it tells you, like this is the engine RPM. So the minimum it ever went was 573. The maximum was 5529. So it auto scale. What that means is that you always see there the min and max. That'll come min and max during this recording. That'll come in handy in a minute. I'll go over that. I always leave those there, but you can remove them obviously if you want to see better. The sweep is the part here in the bottom that I was talking about. This recording, they call it a movie, but this recording was 962 frame long. Now, like I said, most modern scanners can do at least 4,000. Some can do much, much more than that. This will tell you there, how long this recording is. At the bottom here, we have the play button, which I never use, but if you want to look at it, it's kind of cool. Now, that red cursor there is where it's playing, and you can see the data change for each PID. I'll show you why I don't use that. You can also fast forward, etc. I don't use any of that. What I use is I grab the cursor and I move it where I want. So you put it where you want. I'll explain in a little bit. You might have noticed this. If you've used the program before, you'll notice that this looks different. From out of the box, the background is white, I believe. The cursor, I think it's blue. It's been too long. This is all customizable. I like to put it so the way I'm used to seeing it. So let me show you how it's done. We just right-click anywhere. We go to Properties. And now, if I was to click default here, it would bring it all back to the way it was from when you download it from Snap-on. So this show grid here, I don't really use that, but if you wanted a grid, then you can have it. So it might be useful sometime. And the part that I like to play with at first, that makes a big difference, in my opinion, is those colors right here. See, this is the background, it's black. And then you can just go down. The plot is yellow, axis, a grid line, cursor. Now the cursor, I put it to red, just me. I think it's blue from out of the box. Now the next one is the most important that many people don't know about. This break-in data is usually like a gray color. I believe it's like this. And I don't like it. Let me show you why. See, it's a little hard to see. So I like to put it green, and I'll explain to you why this line is important. This gentleman that was helping with this problem sent me 2 recordings. Sometime I get 3, 4, 5. Remember I was explaining to you that the buffer bar keeps filling out. It's always recording when you're looking at the movie. So this is actually 2 movies together. He had sent me 2. This is the second one. Anytime he hits save, pause on the scanner, or turn the key off, turn the key back on, or what have you, it puts one of those marker, which is a break in data. That tells us that this part on the right does not follow the part on the left. He actually hit the save button there. So if you can take 5, 6 recording, and that will put a marker there. And as long as you're within the maximum buffer number that your scanner can handle, as long as the bar is not full, you will have all of them in your last movie. You can delete all the previous ones. So that's really handy. So now I've got my cursor. I have the break-in data. What else was in there? Yeah, data break marker, same thing. I usually put that one. I usually put that one at green also, just to make sure that it sticks out for me. Okay. Now, to get into the more important stuff, the powerful stuff. If you notice, when I move my cursor, all the red cursors move at the same time. Okay. Now, on the upper right here, it will tell us the value at that very precise time. let me cover a couple more things. First of all, I like to eliminate data I don't need. What I mean by that is, you see this voltage okay and driver request, they all flatline, nothing happens. This is just noise in my brain. It makes it hard for me to follow the movie. Now you can ask the technician, or you can do it yourself, to remove those PIDs, but it's always a little tricky to decide on the first movie which PIDs to remove or not. I'd rather see them all to confirm that I don't need this, and that, and then the other ones, the other subsequent movies, I will remove them to get a better data rate, refresh data rate. Now, the way I do this, I have two monitors. Actually, I've got three. It makes it much easier. If you don't have two monitors, I'll show you how to do it on one monitor. You can do it also. What I like to do is to open two of the same movie. So I'm going to double click again. It'll open another one right on top of it. Okay. And now there's a little trick in Windows. You press the Windows key on your keyboard between Control and Alt, and then you press the left or right arrow. If you press left, it's going to go to the left. If you press right, it goes to the right. Okay. So then you let it go, and then you choose which other of your open windows you want to have there. So you see, I have, something didn't work quite right there. Okay. Now I've got it. That way you have them side by side. Now this is much easier with two monitors, but you can do it with one monitor. And here's what I do with this here. Here's why. Now you see here it says complete list, and there's a little arrow. Let me just put it back at full screen. There's custom list and there's complete list. So this is your list that comes in complete, and this is your custom list. Custom list, you decide what you want to see. So on custom list here, you click edit list, and that brings in all of the PIDs there. Now you can deselect all of them, you can select all of them, or you can deselect the ones you don't want. Every one I click becomes white, and they're not going to show. Let's reset this. Okay, one thing to know, this is not going to change the refresh rate of your data. This is done during the recording phase on your scanner. However, it does make it easier to look at the data if you remove the stuff that you don't need. Now, here's the reason why I'm doing the side by side. I like to start, and that's just me, but it's a little trick that I think is very helpful. I like to start by removing all those PIDs where nothing happens. Okay, so right, they're in the same order there that they are in the list. So I'm going to click on this one, the voltage right there. Now shift solenoid valve change 1, shift control. This is if the customer would have used the paddle shift. Obviously, it didn't do any of that. So I can go here and driver control, driver request, up, down, to all. You didn't touch that. This is the mode switcher. I'll keep it there. Let's go down to one set of data. This is just the Prindle data. I'm going to remove it because I know I'm not going to need it on this one. It could be debatable usually. So at first I would leave it there, then I would remove it. Okay, engine coolant. I can see that the whole thing runs from 190 to 195. So obviously engine coolant, I don't need this. Transmission fluid temperature, I'll leave it there because that's, he said it was getting worse when it would warm up. TCM temperature looks fairly identical in there, so I can remove that. Whoop, not this one, remove this one. Transmission hot mode never goes in hot mode, so let me remove that. Now I'm going to further down. I want to shift. What do I have here? Okay, so battery voltage. This is always an important one to look at. It looks real good, so I can scroll all the way down and go remove my battery voltage. On the shift time, I'm going to remove them because it's going to make it easier to show what we're doing. However, to show what I'm talking about here. However, let's pay attention to something here before removing them. Look at all of them, and you can see that the 1-2 shift time is at 195, and the 2-3 shift time is at 153. Therefore, this is slipping 1-2 and 2-3, not just 1-2 like he had told me. So let's remove all of those just because we don't need them, and it's if we needed them, we could bring them back, but it's not going to help us. The next one I want to remove, and this is on every darn 6L80, there's useless PID that I call almost useless. It depends. This one that says pressure control solenoid valve 2 command on and the one in PSI. The one you want is the one in PSI. On or off just means if it's actually sending pressure to the clutch or not, but it doesn't tell you how much, so it's redundant. You don't need it. I remove all of them, make my movie clearer. Come in. Okay, now we're going to click Save and Exit. I'm going to close the second iteration of the movie. I don't need this. This was just to get me started. So I'm going to close this, put this in full screen, and now you see we have a much more manageable set of data right there. Okay, this is all taking a while, but it's just because normally you can do this pretty fast, but it's really worth it when you're digging into a problem. This is not for a little, usual problem, strip shell and 4L60E, no second, no fourth, no reverse. You don't need to do all this rigmarole. But if you've taken the unit apart like this guy, you haven't seen anything, you put a valve body, a TECOM, another TECOM. At one point, it's worth investing a little time to analyze the data. So now the way I like to set it up, and this is just for me, but it goes faster, you do whatever you want, is I like to organize those PIDs the way I want to have them. It's neat. You can just click and drag and put them wherever you want. You can click, drag, wherever you want them. You can also click right here on name and it'll put them back in alphabetical order from C to A or from A to Z. That can come in handy sometime. Now, the way I like to have them, I like to have the TPS, or in this case, the calculated throttle position in the upper left. I like my engine RPM right below. Then I'm looking for my turbine speed. Where is it? It doesn't seem to be there. Oh, it's all the way at the bottom right here. So I would have to scroll down to see it. Now, you can just grab them from here and bring them there. So I put my input, and I like to put my output right there. I like my VSS here. I like my shift command right here. My calculated ratio. This one has calculated ratio. Where is it? The gear ratio right there. This is the calculated. Oh, it was already at the right place. Speed, I like to have it there just because I like to have the OSS with the ISS and RPM so that I can do my own math to double check the ratios calculation. But of course, looking at the VSS here is helpful to tell us where we're going with this, how fast we're going. So then we're going to put the solenoid. So I'm going to go with the line pressure solenoid. I'm going to put it here. 2. Where's the next one? Line pressure solenoid 4. Line pressure solenoid 5. And where's 3? Right here. 3. So we have 2, 3, 4, and 5. There's no 1. We've got line pressure somewhere. That's always neat to have. Let's put it. Oh, it's right there. Let me just move this. I'm going to put ratio here. This here. I'm going to put the torque right there. There. Line pressure. Now, in this case, I don't need to bother myself with the pressure switches. In other case, you'd want to have them really match. It's kind of neat because you can put the pressure switch right under the solenoid. Like in this case, if I was to move it there, you can confirm that the pressure switch does what it's supposed to do when the solenoid comes on. Now there's this little handy dandy plus and minus here. That's to zoom in, zoom out. That comes in really, really handy. So let me just zoom in. Now you can see, you can grab the cursor, and now we can see that when the computer first pulls this is the servo phase. It just charged the circuit at the beginning just to kind of bleed the circuit. Then it keeps it there for a little bit. You can see the pressure switch release because the pressure is not high enough in the circuit. And then once it sees that the shift is starting to happen, then it brings the pressure all the way to max. And the shift happens, the pressure switch follows. So this is a normal pattern there. We're not going to look at those pressure switch. We don't for this example, but it's good to know that you can put them under each and make sure that the things are working the way they should. Now, you might have noticed that there's some erroneous data right here. Line pressure, let's go to, where's my line pressure? Oh, right here. it shows right at 575 psi. Let's go here at the highest peak. It went to 748 psi. Clutch, solenoid pressure goes to 1099. This is a common issue with Snap-on. They put the decimal point at the wrong place. So this is 109.9, and this here is 74.8, not 748. Keep that in mind. The scanner is not perfect. None of them are. They do make mistakes, and when you see something that don't make sense like this, sometimes you have to ignore the PIDs because it doesn't make sense, and sometimes you can figure out. Like in this case, it's very common, very simple. They simply are missing the decimal point. They put it at the wrong place. Okay, so now I've got my data show display the way I like to have them, and we're talking about a slip flare breakaway on the 1-2 shift. So let's look here at the engine RPM. We can see that spike right there. There's this problem that he's reporting. You can see it, how it breaks loose really high. It looks like we have another one here. Yeah, looks like we might have another event. I'm not sure. We're gonna dig into it. Okay, so as you can see here, he went 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It shifted, and if you look right here, everything seemed somewhat fine. Maybe not perfect, but it didn't break loose like in this case. So we need to analyze this a little deeper. At this point, we're going to zoom in. By the way, wherever you put that cursor, that's where it's going to be centered when you zoom in. So if I want to zoom in on this area, I bring my cursor there, and there I go. I zoom in. Let's look at this. Let's look at this. Now we've got, he's in first gear on takeoff. We have, here's a little detail there that's always handy, some little aparté, but you probably have run into that. You take off, and after 3 miles an hour or so, boom, it falls in neutral. And you find that the problem in the transmission is that the low sprag is not locking anymore. It's no good, or it's been installed backward. The reason for that, you can see it here. That's pressure switch, pressure control solenoid number 3 that controls your low reverse clutch. When it gets to about 3 miles an hour, it will release. So you see right here, we're at 2 miles an hour. Yeah, the 3, boom, it releases. So if at this point it's getting ready for the 1-2 shift, it needs to release. Otherwise, you would get a heck of a bind. If the low sprag is not holding, it breaks loose, and people think it's a flare or a slip 1-2, and in fact, it's still in first gear. This is not what we have. This sprag is holding good. No problem there. Now we can see here when it starts doing the 1-2 shift, it's starting to ramp up the pressure control solenoid valve 4 to apply our 2-6 clutch to make our 1-2. The shift seems to be pretty decent. Let's look what the ratio is doing. And we're going from 405 to 251 or so. Let's see what the ratios are supposed to be in this transmission. This is 6L90, so we have 4.02 to 1 in first gear, 2.36 in second gear, 153 in third gear. So obviously it's shifting, maybe slipping a little bit. Let's just move this over here. Okay. So as you can see, we're down to 252. We're supposed to be at 236. And there's a little bump right there. You can see it breaks loose a little bit, then it goes back to 241. So that got me thinking something might not be quite right there. Even though at first it seems to shift okay. It's not a complete break loose, but there is a little something there. You can also see that the computer tried to fix it by raising line pressure quite a bit. Okay. Now we're going a little further. Here's our 2-3 shift. PCS4 comes off, and 2 comes back on, ramps back on, and we see some kind of little flare here. There was a little bit of a flare up on the 2-3. It's going, it went all the way to 264, and then it dropped to 231, and eventually settled at 153 to 1, which is exactly the ratio we're supposed to have. So in this case right here, we're having no slip whatsoever. The throttle is at 32%. It's pretty steady. Everything is going good. We have the next shift, which seems to be pretty decent shift. And we've got the 4-5 shift, which is decent. Now we're going to go further when it acted up here. Now we're having the same thing. We're taking off 4.05 to 1. The ratio is 4.02. Close enough. This is usually, sometime it'll be a few little decimal off like that. It's just a calculation. Those speed sensors are not perfect. Now here's our 1-2. That looks like a pretty clean shift. It went to 248. It might be because the throttle was a little less. It did a pretty decent 1-2 shift on this one, a little flare like the other one. However, here's our 2-3 shift, and now the transmission brake loose completely. Whammo. We're at almost at rev limiter. This tells me a couple of things. First thing first, we thought it was 1-2 only. Obviously, this is 2-3. When the technician was probably just counting the shift by the seat of the pants. Movie is much better for that. The other thing is, look how high the ratio goes. It's at 7.0. Now, this is either a number that's made up as a glitch or something, or it's really going that high. Now, let's bring a calculator here. Let's just confirm that the computer is not, didn't lose a snort there. We have an input speed of 5385. 5385. We're going to divide that by the output speed, 790. And sure enough, we have 6.81 to 6 ratio. So this thing is not slipping on the 1-2 or 2-3. It is actually breaking loose completely. It's not, like I said, simply the 2.6. Like if the 2.6 were not applying, that was one of the first thing I explained to this guy when he asked, there's nothing that releases, so therefore you would stay in first gear. If it broke loose after shifting, a few seconds later, it would go back to first gear. The ratio would be around 4. This one is breaking loose. The only way it could completely break loose like that is if the input clutch, the 1, 2, 3, 4, releases. So there could be a massive leak on this thing, causing it when the clutch tried to apply, create a massive leak, and then everything disengage. At this point, I had him do two things. I had him put a gauge on it to see if the pressure would just drop to nothing when this happened. And I also had him take another movie showing me all the way to 6th gear, because this movie, I'm going to zoom out, you'll see, it never goes higher than 5th gear. I wanted to check the 2.6 application, because obviously, not the 2.6, the 5.6 shift, because the 2.6 clutch works for 1, 2, and 5.6, just to make sure that this was not a problem in the 2.6 clutch, which I didn't think so since it broke loose on the 2.3. However, it could have been that the 2.6 released too quickly when it broke loose over there, causing me a problem on 3.5. So that's why I've got the second movie that he sent me after. He put the gauge on it. He could not see any difference. When it acted up or not, the gauge, it was not conclusive. It seemed to be at the same or very close to the same pressure for throttle opening, matched the command. He did the usual idle, park, reverse, drive, stall, and bidirectional command. Everything seemed to be very close. It is definitely not conclusive. It looked pretty darn good. So I had him send me another movie, this one going from 1st to 6th, and let's open this movie. Now we've got the same issue again, that we have all those PIDs. So what I'm going to do here is my little trick I was talking to you about. Let's put those two movies side by side. And now I'm going to go to edit list here. I'm going to go custom edit list there. And I'm going to choose exactly the same PIDs to remove. That way, both of my movies are going to look identical. Let's do this real quick. Internal engine PC mode. Okay, so now we have the same movie. I just need to arrange my PIDs the same way. So calculated torque here, engine RPM here, under, OSS under. Again, this is just click and grab. Yes, it is. Solenoid 5, so that I can compare apples with apples and orange with oranges. Okay, so this is my 1.6. This is my, let's put this in full screen. Move this to the side so we can see something. Now, as you can see in this one, there's many recordings. He actually sent me 4 movies. All I needed to do is keep the last one because you see he's got 1177 frame, but there is 3 of those little green vertical line that indicate that there was data break. That's so when I looked at it, I realized, okay, this was his first movie, second movie, third movie, and fourth movie. They're all in there. So we can see if we zoom in a little bit that there was maybe a little something happening here, but all in all, it's not too bad. This was not too bad. This was not too bad. And right here, whammo. Here we go. There's our flare again. And this time it was while in third gear. So let's go. The 1-2 shift happened. It went down to 170. It should be 153. Oh, it went down to 154. That's good. Look what happened here. He gave throttle and the thing just broke loose again. Whoa. Now, didn't go super high like in the previous case. It almost looks like it went back to second gear, but it completely broke loose again. Not completely, but on the in the same scale. Now there's a bunch of things that we can look here. Make sure that the command stays normal. You see that the increase in line right here corresponded to the increase. He went all the way to 73% throttle. The load seems to be calculated properly. The pressure went up. The solenoid, they remain the same. The only thing, the solenoids are, the shift solenoids are only active during the shift. So like right here, this is the 1-2 shift. Now, as you can see, it ramps up the pressure control number 2 as the same time this is a synchronized shift. So it reduced the pressure to solenoid valve number 4. And there you go. It finishes the shift here. It's all happy. Everything is at the max. 109.9 is actually AFL pressure on this unit. That's why it shows that. Those are not real value. There is no transducer. The computer has absolutely no way to know what the pressure is in the transmission. Those are just calculated assumption. If the solenoid is completely full flow, commanded to maximum, it assumes that it is at this AFL pressure. If your AFL pressure is higher or lower than that because you have a problem, obviously the pressure is going to be different at the clutch. Same thing with line pressure. It just assumes here that this is based on the line pressure control solenoid, how much AFL pressure it sends to the boost valve to boost your pressure. Don't let this fool you. This is not real pressure. You need to put a gauge on it to be able to see if it's really what he's getting. In this case, he did that, and that's what he was getting. So now to the cause of this problem. He had the technician had taken the transmission apart more than once. Send me some pictures. Let me just put them on this screen. Look at those. There's nothing wrong. It's a little shiny. Nothing there that we can see that shows slipping. I know it's slipping. I can see it in the movie. I mean, there's no, especially on the 1.5 here, there is no, bring it back. I mean, this is completely right here. Yeah, there was another event in that movie where it did it right here and in the 1-5, but here we go. So as we did the math before, this here, we know that it went to 7 to 1. We know this is neutral. There is no connection with the engine anymore. The 1, 2, 3, 4 clutch are not holding. No ifs or buts about it. His pressure didn't drop. Therefore, we're missing something big. The only thing left, I forgot to mention, he had replaced the 2.6 drum and the clutch a couple of times. replace a complete 3/5 reverse drum. The drum for the 1, 2, 3, 4, he had it re-welded in case there was a crack. Looked at the piston, couldn't see anything. At this point, I was convinced he had a cracked piston and he simply missed it. We're all getting older. You don't see very well. It's hard to tell sometimes. I sent him a little image. Hey, dude, this piston cracks. You probably missed it. He said, not possible. I'm, well, telling you, something's going on there. Oh, and the thing air checked perfect, as far as he's told me anyway. So I tell him this little trick that will tell you every single time, without a iota of a doubt, if a part is cracked or not. So hold a piston in your hand and hit it with a wrench. It should sound like a bell. Bing! If it does not have this bell sound, the piston is cracked. He took it apart one more time, sent me this little video. Let me bring it over here. Let me start. So this is the piston that he for the unit, the Trouble 1, and now he's going to show you the a good piston. There you go. You cannot mistake that this piston is cracked, even if you can't see it. That dull sound, that's cracked. Good piston. Now, of course, now that he knew piston was indeed cracked, he decided to look again. This time, put his glasses on and clean everything real good. And sure enough, look at that crack there. It's cracked the whole way. So this was the problem. It was never a 1-2 issue. Sometimes it was 2-3. It could have been in fourth gear for as long as the 1, 2, 3, 4 were applied. When it was hot and you would put it under load, it would break loose. And amazingly enough, did not burn the clutch whatsoever. So there you have it. It's a bit tricky to learn how to use, but this program will allow you to see things you've never seen before. It will allow you to do things like, let's say there's no PID for gear ratio here, but you're getting a gear ratio code. Well, all you have to do is do like I did, and open your calculator and divide input by output, and you can calculate the ratio yourself. If you want to know if the valve moved, you simply look at the pressure switch. If the pressure switch does not close or doesn't open when it should, then the valve didn't move. If that pressure switch moved or closed, that means the valve has moved. Doesn't mean there's pressure at the clutch. Could be leaking like in this case, but this tells you. Now, this sky's the limit on this. Same thing for engine side. And there's also the scope part, which is going to be a whole different discussion one day. That is much, much more powerful if you use if you use ShopStream than if you try to look it up directly on your scope. I wanted to cover another thing that I didn't need to do in this particular one. But if you are to look at things like TCC slip, many times this comes really in handy. So let me show you. TCC slip. I'll just put it here. Okay. So we're going to have engine. This is a little bit of bonus just so that I can cover everything that I think is important to know that you can do in ShopStream. This is the, let me just do it like this. So we have engine speed right here. We have turbine speed right here. And this is our slip. Now, the way the scanner works is that like this one goes 0 to 5528, and this one goes 573 to 5529. This is because the engine obviously never stops, so it didn't go below 573, but the turbine, when we're at a stop, goes to 0. So if we want to compare properly, in this case it was not super important, but sometimes it's really important, we have to put them on the same scale. And the way to do that is easy. You right-click on the graph you want to change, you go to Property, and you remove this little auto scale right there. And now I can put my minimum 0 and my maximum 552. I'm going to put just 28. And apply, and now those are in line. I can have a better correlation. The other thing that's really neat is when we want to zoom in on the data. This is our slip right here. Obviously, the computer is commanding full lockup. This is locked. We can see right there. But what if we have a shutter or something and we want to see precisely what's happening? Well, this is the same thing. We click, and now this time we're at about 7, never goes above 10. So let's change our auto scale and let's put it from -10 2 plus 10. That's it. Look at this. You can see the slight up and down. This is perfectly normal. We're just zoomed in quite a bit. But let me just change it a little bit to make it a little better. I'm going to put in my 5, 15. So if you wanted to if you had a lockup issue or any other kind of issue and you want to see really zoomed in, this shows it much, much better than if I go with the way it does it with autoscale, which is like this. You can't see any definition anymore. So this comes in really handy. You graph the solenoid command and the slip command, and then you can tell, okay, is the solenoid command trying to chase the slip, or is the slip happening because of the solenoid command? You got a chicken question. If you zoom in on both, it really, really help. Also, if you're comparing two movies and like the throttle position, I personally always put it 0 to 100 because I want to know at a glance what how much I'm pushing on the throttle. So if you're comparing two movies and one he never went above 20%, the other one he did a wide open throttle, well, it'll look completely different on both graphs, even though it'll be the same reading. One will look like he's barely touching the throttle at 22%, and the other one is going to look like he's 3/4 in at 22% because he only went to, say, 27 during the whole recording. So that comes in really handy. Again, the best, it's a luxury, but if you happen to have an extra monitor, 2 monitors, 2 movies side by side, compare a good and a bad, or before and after the repair, does wonder. I hope this was helpful. As I mentioned before, I will be uploading from time to time case studies like this using ShopStream Connect. So if you want to get notified, be sure to not just subscribe to the channel, but also click on that bell button so that you get a notification. Thank you, and have a great day.